Hello, everybody, and welcome to our, first ever, Tyler. This is going to be Zoho One and Beyond, an overview of every Zoho application. If you follow us on our YouTube channel or subscribe to our podcast, you know that every year we do Zoho One, and we kind of take you through all of the applications that are in there, the changes that have been made. This year, we decided to expand it out because Zoho's been adding a lot of applications that aren't necessarily part of Zoho One. So we want to take you through each and every application, give you the pros and the cons, tell you where it might fit into your organization, talk about the pricing, business use cases, and basically just kind of run through it all. Last time we did this was January 2023. It was the Zoho One overview, and that took us an hour and a half. So we've blocked out 12 hours today. And so this will be a long video. Honestly, hopefully, we're not sure how long it's going to take. But the neat thing is, if you're interested in a particular application, you'll just be able to click down below and skip to the whatever application you're interested in hearing our thoughts on. And with that, Tyler, I guess we should jump right on into it.
Let's do it. No time like the present.
So if you are unfamiliar with us here at Zenatta, on our website, we have a resource page. And we basically break down in the apps into three categories. One, you should definitely use these applications. And these are all the applications that are in the definitely category. And that means really for almost any organization, if you're definitely, the app is going to be good for you. It will normally work for almost any application. The probably is, I would say 80% of the companies out there, these applications will just be fine for, but there might be some specific business use cases where it's just not going to happen. And then lastly, we have our maybes. And this would be where, I don't know, probably reverse everything else here. And, probably for 20% of the companies that are out there, these applications will be good enough and we'll get it done. And we'll kind of talk through those. So we're going to break this down into our three basic categories here. We're not going to run through the apps in alphabetical order. Well, we are, but alphabetical by each category. So with that, we're going to start here in the definitely's, and let's get right to it, and we'll jump right into Zoho Analytics. So Zoho Analytics is an interesting one, Tyler. It's the Zoho's BI tool. This is one that we do quite a bit of work on, and it's definitely up here in this probably category.
And the reason that we have it up indefinitely here is that really like the only application on the market that might have some features that analytics doesn't are things like Tableau, just purely in the visualization category, but really for 99% of businesses, Zoho Analytics can be a great fit. A couple reasons we love it, kind of right off the top. Has a wide range of connectors, primarily, for really every Zoho application. Sometimes an app will release and it doesn't connect to analytics, but within like 6 months, you can expect that it will. Also has connectors for a ton of non-Zoho apps. So even things like, Zoho app competitors, Salesforce, HubSpot, many different CRMs, many different help desk tools, and even like cloud-based data storage platforms, Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure. Kind of use it in a lot of different ways in builds, obviously for pulling reports and dashboards and visualizations, but also for data management projects, So you may be working on an integration and the data lives in Azure. Well, cool. That'll natively pull in the analytics, and then you can sync that into relevant Zoho apps. So great tool. This one is included with Zoho One. You get an enterprise license with it. But yeah, well worth a use if you are using Zoho tools because it really is just a fantastic application.
Yeah. And it is included in Zoho One. It is included in CRM Plus, and it is included in Marketing Plus. It's the premium plan in Zoho One, and CRM Plus, it's a custom plan that's included with Zoho Marketing Plus. And you basically have, you can buy it standalone, relatively easy pricing on that. And I won't touch on this on every single one, but we do call this our resource library. It's not just where we break down the definitelys, probablys, maybes. This is a definitely, I know I said probably. But we also keep all of our resources. So as we make videos on these things, we'll basically put them here. You can go to our YouTube channel and see them, or they're right here. So we have all of our getting starteds and our how-to basics, and Tyler is clearly the guru in analytics. Oh, got one break here. And some how-to advanced. We also keep track of all of our articles. So when you click into any of these resources in the library, or You can not only get a view of them, but you also maybe can find something you're looking for, a tip. It's nicely organized. You can go to our YouTube channel, but sometimes it makes it a lot easier just to search it right here. All righty. And moving on, Zoho Backstage. This is Zoho's event management tool. It has grown a lot over the years. It used to be a physical event management tool. Then with the dawn of COVID, it moved into both physical and virtual event management tool. An interesting product across the board, kind of competes with Eventbrite and a couple of those that are out there. But it's definitely up in our definitely category because it's a very, very very full featured tool across the board.
Yeah, this is one of those applications that Zoho uses to run all of their events. So it was interesting, when COVID hit and they had to cancel all their in-person events, all of a sudden Backstage got a flurry of updates that enabled it to be used for virtual events because they wanted to run virtual events. So this is one that can operate at the scale of something like Zoholics. This is what they use to manage that event, which is, thousands of people, tons of different vendors and booths. So pretty darn full featured. One thing we do always like to highlight this with this one as well is that they're not taking a commission on ticket sales. So as you're comparing it to something like Eventbrite, you kind of have to do the pricing math between the two. The downside of Backstage from a pricing perspective is that you're paying per event rather than per percent of a ticket. So if you do have a lot of small events where you don't have a lot of people that normally attend them, that's where the pricing might get a little tricky. With Backstage, that's kind of why it's in the definitely not that every single person should use it kind of category. But it's a great tool. I'd say really the only drawback functionally is that when you do host a virtual event, if you're using like the meeting or webinar integration, you can expect less than best in class audio and video quality. But other than that, absolutely great application and well worth taking a look at if you need to run an event.
Absolutely. And it is included in Zoho One, but as Tyler mentioned, you do, even though it says unlimited events, yes, you can have unlimited events, but you are paying on a per event basis. So it's, but a very, very good, very solid tool, prints your badges, does speaker pages, does agenda pages, does everything you would want in an events management tool. All righty. And moving along, Zoho Bigin. Zoho Bigin is Zoho's light CRM, mobile CRM. It is desktop as well. It is a fascinating app in that it competes directly with Zoho CRM, but it also integrates with Zoho CRM. So if you are a person who's used to kind of a Kanban CRM, like a Pipedrive or a Copper or any of those kind of things, well, basically, this is that type of an application. Very simple. It has grown a lot since it was released in 2020. Basically, the integrations have gotten deeper. The features have gotten deeper. So it's becoming more of a full-fledged CRM across the board. I would say this kind of, if for lack of a better word, a modern CRM. Although I think Zoho CRM is a modern CRM and does a lot. So, it's kind of interesting. Oftentimes people ask us, well, which one should I use? And it's really going to be a preference thing. It's going to be on what you need your CRM to do for you. We do have a lot of companies that actually use both. So their outside sales teams just need something down and dirty. They're on Bigin. And the internal team is on CRM. And the synchronization has gotten exceptionally good. So you're not sharing a common database. There is synchronization between these, but it's gotten good.
Yeah, I think really the only little missing feature in Bigin that did pop up recently for me when I was talking to a prospect about is that it doesn't technically have a leads database. So that's the one thing that needs to be exclusively worked inside of CRM. But yeah, the most common way that we see people use this is, you've got your main CRM, that's the mothership, that's kind of home base, right? Where all the invoicing, contract management, all of that type of stuff will be done. But where Bigin really shines is on an iPad and a mobile device. The mobile app for Bigin is much better, much easier to use than the CRM app, in large part because it doesn't do so many things, right? The less things that an app can do, the simpler and cleaner it is to use. So yeah, most of the time what we end up seeing here is that kind of like you've got the mothership being main CRM, and then you've got certain types of users who are kind of working their deals inside of Bigin. included within Zoho One, so don't have to pay anything extra if you've already got a Zoho One license. Well worth taking a look at if you have some people that might be struggling with the mobile implementation of CRM.
Yes, and it's very, very reasonably priced. As a standalone version, the Premier package is $12 per user per month. If you were to compare that with Zoho CRM Enterprise Edition, you're at $50 per user per month. So, it is have some limits, 100,000 records. It's got some limits that you're not going to get inside the CRM, but great application. All right, moving along. Zoho Calendar, kind of an odd one. It sits out there on its own. Most people are going to use this. If you have Zoho Mail, Calendar's kind of included in Zoho Mail. It's all kind of right there in one place. But if you want a standalone calendar app, it's good. It's a calendar app. It's solid. Not much you can say about it.
Yeah, really the only time that Calendar might give some people issues is if you're using a lot of non-Zoho tools externally. So like if you're using Bookings and Zoho Mail and some of these other tools, works great. The one thing you will find just as a drawback for it is things like Calendly or Acuity, some of those big kind of third-party tools that a lot of people end up using as a best-in-class option might not directly integrate into Calendar. But other than that, it is a solid calendaring tool. It's got a little odds and ends types of things that you might have to learn, might be a little different than what you're used to. But nonetheless, solid application to use within Zoho.
And it's free. So go ahead and grab it. All right. And then moving on, Zoho Cliq, one of the favorite applications that we use. Most people are familiar with Microsoft Teams or Slack. That is what Zoho Cliq is. It's for basically internal and external communication and allows you to set up channels, just on and on. It's a fantastic tool. If you are using Zoho, the integrations across applications for notifications, for various other things are exceptionally easy to set up. It also does work with third-party applications as well for those notifications. But you can set up a channel for, somebody paid an invoice. Great, let's just let everybody know in this particular channel that this invoice was paid. We just closed a new client. Hey, let's let everybody know that we just closed a new client in this particular channel. They added threads in the last 18 months, which has also been very nice. So you can kind of keep even though you're in a channel, maybe you have a whole separate conversation going on inside that channel. You can separate it out so it doesn't clog up the entire channel. Virtually one of the best apps out there.
Yeah.
You can,
very little reason not to use it if you're on Zoho, especially if you're on Zoho One. One really nice thing is if you're currently on Slack, the migration to Cliq is so easy. It is just completely seamless. You just take a backup, upload it in a Cliq, and boom, everything is there. You are good to go. I would say like comparing it to Slack and Teams, it's much more like Slack than Teams. In terms of like the UI, the kind of way that you're going to end up using it. Yeah. Really the only little I'd say issue that we have on it is like the AV on video calls is not always great. We use it for internal calls, so it's generally fine. Like we're a little more picky on a video call with like a client or a prospect than we are on like a quick, like, hey, let me call Brett and get a quick answer for something. So it's more than suitable for internal communications, but if you're extremely picky, you might notice that it's not quite up to snuff compared to like the quality in a Zoom call. But it is included with Zoho One, has all those tight integrations, and is a pretty darn good option for doing all of your internal communication.
Yeah, and I haven't checked in a while, but the last time I looked, Slack was $9 per user per month. I think that was the entry level. This is cheap. Super, super cheap. 25 users for, $16.20 a month if you pay annually. The professionals $1.80 paying annually. Enterprise $360. It's crazy the amount of value you get out of this application. And if if you're on Zoho One, there's no reason to stay with Slack. There really isn't. It's a great, great, great application. All right, moving on. Zoho Connect. Such an odd one. Zoho Connect is Zoho's intranet. You can also set up extranets. So these are places where you will have internal communications and external communications. Maybe you're putting manuals or videos, but it goes deeper than that. It actually has task boards that are probably some of the best that Zoho has from a Kanban perspective. It does a lot. We don't talk about it a lot because you get a lot of the functionality that you may want is in Cliq from a general communication perspective. A lot of the things in here are also in Zoho Learn, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But it does have really interesting functionality. You can do AMAs, Ask Me Anythings. You can have pop-up meetings. You can have town halls. You can keep calendars that are specific to various groups within the organization. So all in all, it does a lot and is a just interesting app. But I don't know if it just doesn't seem to get deployed that often, Tyler.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when we, it's in that definitely category because when we compare it feature for really most other intranet tools, it stacks right up. Obviously, each tool, you can have a preference for how exactly it does this or how it does that, but really solid application. But yeah, it's not one that we find ourselves implementing too often. I think partially because it's pretty easy to implement. I think a lot of people don't need a ton of help from us to do it. It's one of those things where maybe we give them 30 minutes to show them around the app and they're like, okay, I get it. Yep, I can go and put an AMA here. I can do a town hall here. So solid tool, good for those internal communication channels. I'd say like the one thing that, and it's not an issue of the app, it's just the position of it is you have to decide like which things are actually best to have in here. So you've got those beautiful task boards, but they don't really integrate with other things that nicely. And you've got things like projects and desk and other places where those tasks might more naturally live. So not an application we spend a ton of time implementing, but one that does its job if you are looking for an intranet.
And it's included with Zoho One, People Plus, Workplace. And if you decide to buy it standalone, it is relatively inexpensive. I will say, though, that over and above the base price, if you're setting up extranets, you are going to pay. I think you get one free in the enterprise, maybe a couple in the ultimate. I'm not sure. But then after that, you're going to have to pay for each and every extranet. And they're not cheap, but you can set them up and they become very nice forms of boards. All right. Moving right along. Zoho Contracts. Interesting application. So Zoho Contracts, basically, I think it's does it only integrate with CRM? Is that the...
It integrates with CRM right now. It's again, it goes into a similar category for me as Connect, where this is a great app that we just don't find a ton of perfect use cases for. This is one that does get a little confusing. So just to kind of explain the use of contracts is, as everyone knows, in CRM, there's a lot of different ways to send a document, right? And normally what we do is a mail merge into sending it for Zoho Sign. What contracts is used for is if you need a much stricter management process around those documents. So like if you don't have a dedicated legal team, you probably don't need to use contracts, right? Because what it's really for is that it has two different user groups. You've got like senders and you've got legal. And what legal's job is to define all the content, all the rules, all the relationships between various clauses within a particular document. And then the sender kind of goes through a user interface to select various things, and they have to play by the rules that legal has defined. So like if you've got one standard proposal template with a master service agreement and you just need to send it out with a different product or service, you probably don't need this. But if you have a lot of contracting that needs to go on and you've got a lawyer on staff or a legal team to manage it, it can add a ton of value. But yeah, it does integrate directly with CRM, send a contract right out for a deal. On the back end, the signing is hosted via Zoho Sign, so it does end up there, just like a mail merge would. So like a little less flexible on the look and feel, but you can be a lot tighter on the rules and regulations when it comes to what's actually going to be on that document.
Yep. And, that doesn't allow images is strange. I mean, that's kind of one of the breaking points where a lot of people, I think, would use it if they could drop images into it. But like you say, I mean, that is the use case you pointed out. It's kind of it. Because otherwise, you're going to want to use Zoho Writer. You can create extremely dynamic documents based off of a deal, a contact, an account, whatever you want. You can have images. You can just do so much more. But like you say, if there's a lot of legal agreements, you have a legal team, you might want to look at it. Again, the professional version is included in Zoho 1. And we've got standard. Probably need to fix this. I think this is your standard and your professional version here. So we're taking a look at Zoho contracts if you are sending out a ton of different contracts. All right, and moving along, Zoho Creator. Wow, there's so much to this tool. Zoho Creator is, you have, we're going to talk about, I think, 60, 70 Zoho applications today, but you then say, gosh, I just wish it could do this specific thing, and I can't find an application that does that. Well, here comes Zoho Creator. It can be a tool for your field where maybe you're just making a simple creator application that's a form that people look at mobile that they're filling out that is talking to various apps. There's really not a lot you can't do with Zoho Creator when it comes to custom application development. We run virtually all of Zenatta on a massive creator implementation that is client-facing. It's internal-facing. It talks to CRM. It talks to books. It talks to sign. It talks to everything. And it's a well-done application, and they keep improving it and improving it and improving it. We talk about Creator 5 here. Creator 6 is now out, and slowly everybody will be migrating to it. And it is included with Zoho 1. It's included with a thing called Creator Plus, which bundles Creator with a bunch of different applications. Or you can buy it as a standalone application. It can get a little pricey. If you were to go with something like, if you're setting up portals and external user portals, there are a bunch of different add-ons for this. So you kind of want to take a look at it and see what this is going to run you. And decide, is this what I want to do? Or do I actually want to hire a development firm to build a standalone app where I won't run into these limits? So there comes a kind of a cost threshold here where you really got to look at what's the use for your app. Is this going to be the cheapest way to go? Or is it going to be better just to build a straight up custom application? Or in many cases, it seems like people go down this road and that functionality is just part of basic out-of-the-box Zoho applications, and you may or may not need it. But if you do need it, good app.
Yeah, it's one of those tools. Really, the only downside of it is that you're starting with a blank page. They do have a lot of template apps that you can kind of launch and then adjust and deploy. So just know, this is a development tool. You're going to have to put some time and effort in, and some of the downsides of it is things that might be natively supported in something like CRM, like a layout rule, right? If industry is real estate, then show property information, right? That has to be coded, right? You got to write it a little bit of Deluge script to actually implement a lot of those things. Now, the benefit of that is that you can now make a much more robust layout rule, right? That you might not be able to do in something like CRM. So yeah, it has really low floor, really high ceiling. So important just to keep that in mind as you jump in. Long term, you're able to even inject HTML and CSS into pages, which is how we do a lot of our portals. So you're really building a web app here that you can use in a ton of different use cases. Really the only downside, and this will be true of any low code app like this, is just you got to build it. So you got to come in with a plan and with an understanding of your business rules and requirements. Otherwise, it's easy to get lost in there. One tip we always like to give for people is try a native Zoho app first, and then use Creator to extend the functionality if needed. Because a lot of the times, we'll plug in and we'll see someone had built something in Creator and we'll go, oh, that could have just been CRM. And you might have saved yourself some time and effort and been able to integrate with more things more easily. So you got to be a little careful because, you can get shiny object syndrome in there. But it is a fantastic application.
Yeah. And one of the things we talked about our resource library and the fact we have resources around this. There's not a lot of great resources out there around Zoho Creator, but Josh has single-handedly taken it on to start building creator tutorials. So if you're thinking about doing it, he has given you just everything you may need to kind of go through and at least get your basic application up and built. It looks like Alex has even jumped in. We got some stuff there. So we're trying to build this out because a lot of Zoho apps you don't need to hire a consultant for. Just there's some basic stuff. And if you're willing to spend the time, you can kind of dig through the resource library and it'll be there. But great app, great development tool. All right. The granddaddy of them all, the foundation.
All roads
So,
lead to CRM.
which we actually had a person write, what does CRM stand for in our YouTube channel? And I asked myself, why were you watching the videos? But it is customer relationship management. And this is kind of, I get asked all the time, Tyler, you do too. We're both kind of front facing in sales in the company. And they're like, how does this stack up against Salesforce? How does this stack up against, NetSuite? It's as good as or not better. It's really an absolutely fantastic application. The customization you can do on it is amazing. You can really do so much with it. Had a call with a guy the other day who had basically lived his entire life in Salesforce and had moved to Zoho and was like, my goodness, it would have taken us hundreds of thousands of dollars of professional development to get Salesforce to where this app is now, and what we're just able to do. So great application. The one down, we talk about all the time, the Kanbans need to be fixed, right? And they did fix, did they fix the rich text? They did do
Kind of
this.
did. So they've got it in multi-select fields, not in notes yet. And I think a lot of people are kind of waiting on it for notes. So that con will go away soon, that it currently just doesn't support rich text everywhere. But fantastic tool. Definitely one that you need to, I would say almost similar to Creator. I think like when you have just a baseline instance of CRM, it does have kind of a low floor. Most people are going to need to customize it at least some, right, to make sure that it matches their business needs. That's just because of the fact that it's not a vertical tool. It's a CRM that could be used by automotive, real estate, insurance, finance, software consulting, like we use it. So you will need to get in there and make sure it's customized for your initial needs. The nice thing is, though, like you're mentioning, Brett, the amount of work required to get it to like version 1, where it kind of matches your process and you can get in there and start using it is very limited. Big thing that I think a lot of people love about it, the ability to automate. I mean, just any update to any field can trigger anything. If you're willing to write a little code or kind of dive into the workflows. Couple big updates for it this year are things like cadence management and kiosk studio. The kiosk studio is really cool. There's even more that some of my team has come up with in that, essentially as a process management tool across the entire system. So incredibly great tool. One that generally, if you're going to do a Zoho implementation, this is where to start. All data should kind of flow here first and then sync out into other tools. But yeah, this is kind of a bedrock application in Zoho's environment.
And it's included in Zoho 1, and it's included in Zoho CRM Plus. Actually, in CRM Plus, the Ultimate Edition is included in CRM Plus. We've got a little mistake here, but you get the Ultimate Edition in CRM Plus. Rarely have we ever run into anybody who needs the Ultimate Edition, but I think maybe once. But if you, most people are going to get away with this Enterprise Edition, highly, highly full featured across the board. And again, from a resource perspective, if you're just starting out with Zoho CRM, this would be the one that we have built out the most tutorials and learnings on, from getting started and how-to basics and how to advance and email management and mail merge and workflows and blueprints and roles permission security extension. It goes on and on and on. We have a lot of videos. We're constantly updating them. And so worth taking a look at as well. All right. And moving on, DataPrep came out a couple of years ago, Tyler. An interesting application. Oftentimes, what I hear from our team is, well, I'll just do this inside of analytics, right? But take us through DataPrep and where the use cases might be.
Yeah, so DataPrep has, I would say, like 2 main use cases. There's one use case for it where you're just using it as its own tool. Maybe you regularly get data from a supplier and you want to import it into Zoho, but maybe there are some cleanup things that you need to do every time, right? Like a common one is like, hey, they give you the address all in one column and you need it as street, city, state, zip, kind of to format for an import into something like CRM. You can essentially set up like cleanup routines or templates where you're loading in a file and then it's kind of doing these predetermined actions. You take that file right back out and you go bring it into whatever tool you want to use it in. The other way to use DataPrep is kind of as an in-between between like a third-party data source and something like Zoho Analytics. So DataPrep is a source of data for analytics. So let's say that like you work with a third party and they give you some, EDI or data pipeline, and you know that it has a ton of duplicates in it. And you don't want those duplicates in your analytics account because maybe you use a lot of data there. You don't want to pay for extra storage. So you could actually pipe that data to DataPrep, clean it up there, and then pipe it into Zoho Analytics just to limit like your data management size on the analytics side. Things that they're working on, like I know they have an integration for CRM where you can actually pull like a module into DataPrep, clean it up, and then push it back. That's really useful. But yeah, this is a tool that a lot of what you could do in here, you could do with a SQL statement in analytics. And so a lot of the times us as, major nerds are going to put it right in analytics and clean it up there with SQL. Reality is a lot of people don't want to use SQL to do that, right? It might be less of a comfort zone for them. And most like common cleanup actions, you can do very easily in DataPrep. Proper case, splitting addresses, normalizing phone number formatting. Like a lot of those things can just be predefined in DataPrep, and then you do them there. So well worth taking a look at. I would say like the only thing, and this is a very particular issue that I have with it, is if you load a ton of data in, it gives you like a preview to work with of the full data set. It's a little small. I'd like it to be bigger. That's very minor though. That's really a me thing more than it is a universal issue. So yeah, well worth taking a look at inside of, your kind of data pipeline. I think one big thing is they're going to add more and more AI tools to this. This is where I think a lot of AI functionality is going to land. So that might make it even more useful over time.
All right, and moving along, Deluge. So I don't know. Is this really a standalone application? I guess
quite an application. I mean, Deluge is everywhere. It's every application. So Deluge, of course, is Zoho's backend scripting language. This is what you're going to do to automate things and workflows, regardless of what application you're in. Really nice to use. Very similar to JavaScript, except it's easier to use than JavaScript. A common example I always like to joke about with JavaScript coders is proper case in JavaScript is very annoying. In Deluge, it's just .proper, and now it's proper cased. So they've got a lot of those quick commands and easy to use functionality. You're going to be pretty universal across Zoho apps. You will see little minor differences like date time formats and things like that. But pretty much like if you can write Deluge in CRM, you can write it in books, you can write it in Desk, projects, really anywhere. Always getting updates, always getting support. So you're going to find yourself using Deluge if you are building out a Zoho install that is pretty robust.
Yes. And this is the scripting language that really is the glue that ties everything together and makes kind of all the magic happen across all the various
special
applications.
Sauce. Yeah, a lot of the special sauce here is in the Deluge portion of an implementation.
It is. And what we don't have, we've got some basic things that have been put together around getting started and how to advance. We've got some videos there. If you're really getting into Deluge, if you're really getting into programming, putting it together, head over to Club Zenatta, club.zenatta.com. It is our social network. It's our online community, if you will. And every week we post a code share there. And it's probably becoming the greatest library of useful Deluge code you would ever want to use. And so you can kind of search. We have hundreds of pieces of code in there now. And you can kind of go through and really say, okay, great. This is, this is what I'm looking for. And you can modify it. And if it's not working, you can kind of ask a question, right? And it will, someone will probably answer and tell you what mistake you made. Oh, you left off a parenthesis. But anyway, it's a nice little tool. Moving right along, Zoho Desk. This is Zoho's help desk software. Competes out there with Zendesk. It is an extremely full-featured help desk across the board. We have no cons on this application. You can have departments, you can break things into group, you can automate ticket routing, you can have multiple, you can have them come in from chat, you can have them come in from text, you can have them come in from emails, you can have people fill out forms. Every single aspect of it is well thought out, exceptionally robust. If you are a Zoho One user and you've got that for CRM, you get a single pane of glass inside your CRM. You can see all the help desk tickets. You can spin up a ticket from CRM. It just is just great application across the board.
And tons of use cases for it. Oftentimes we'll be on a prospecting call and someone has no idea that they're about to use Desk. And, they'll say, oh, we've got this sales@zenatta.com and these emails come in and sometimes we don't follow up on them. And it's like, yeah, let's use Desk for that, right? You can use Desk for really anything where a process needs to start because of a communication, whether it's a text message, a phone number, an email. And maybe all you need to do is just add a button that turns it into a deal in CRM. But it's just a beautiful place to consolidate all of those communication channels into one hub. We even use it on the back end of our system to send a lot of automated notifications just so we can track them more easily. One thing I always like to highlight with this tool is start simple. If you're not using any ticketing tools, then you really don't need to do a lot to get version 1 stood up. It's an application that you could go really deep in, right? The settings menu is massive, but most people just need a simple installation for version 1 so you can start using it and get going. But yeah, well worth using if you're on the Zoho stack. Really, the only little thing that I would say Zendesk has it beat on nowadays is their help center is more customizable. But really, it's so minimal, and most people just don't need to write a bunch of HTML and CSS for their knowledge base. You can in Zendesk if you want to, but really, should you? It doesn't matter that much. Great tool. No reason not to give this a go if you are in the Zoho ecosystem.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about the power of it and things you can do on the back end. Oftentimes it can even be used as kind of a piece of middleware. I mean, we've got some emails from Desk. You can push messages over to Cliq. So if something comes in, you can populate a Cliq channel. So you could actually forward an email to a separate channel, and from there it can be processed out, and then you can do other notifications. I mean, just it goes on and on and on and on and on. I will give a little shout out here. You talk about the help center. Oftentimes people aren't happy with that. We've talked about it before. There's a great portal tool out there called Z Portals. And that has some super nice integration with here. You kind of customize that help center a little more if you're looking to do something with that. So, all right. And moving on, Zoho Flow. Everybody's heard of Zapier. Well, that's what Zoho Flow is. It basically allows you to, in a zero code environment, connect one thing to another thing's API and do things with it just as you would in Zapier. It not only supports third-party applications, but it also could be used with a bunch of Zoho applications. So if you're not want to hire somebody to make an API connection between two applications, Zoho Flow may work in those cases. It might not. There might be things it's not able to do. But in a lot of cases, simple API calls, simple things like that. This is a zero code drag and drop. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And when this happens, talk to this app, get that. It does it. It does it well. It can be slow, and it can bug out occasionally. Although I think that's gotten less and less.
It's become less and less common that you see those kind of mystery issues in it. One thing that I do really like about this tool is it is no code, and a lot of times you can do things without writing code in it, or you can just put an entire block of Deluge code in it. So if you want to write code in there, you totally can. It's just a lot of actions you might not need to. One use case that we use Flow for all of the time is that you can very easily create a webhook endpoint in Zoho Flow. And so maybe a lot of times we'll be working on the Zoho side and our client has an IT team, right? And they say, hey, certain things happen over here and we want Zoho to be notified about it. Maybe they're not super comfortable setting up their own full bore, OAuth connected API integration. Cool. We'll just spin up an endpoint here. You send us the data and we'll get it into Zoho. So a lot of different ways to use this tool. Yeah, I would say the only con that we really still see with it is one, it might not have a connector for an app that Zapier connects to. That's going to happen. You're going to find those. And two, occasionally a flow will go into a queue. So if you're automating something that can't wait 5 minutes, maybe try to do it without flow. It's pretty rare nowadays, but it can happen occasionally. But other than that, Fantastic tool. We use it all the time. Helps give our clients more control too, and it's easier for them to learn. flow than it is to learn like a 500-line Deluge code. So great application. I like the UI a lot more than Zapier personally. It's more of like a flow chart rather than like the pages and tabs thing that Zapier does. So yeah, one that we use very regularly in our implementations.
And included in Zoho One and included in Creator Plus, and as a standalone application, $10 per org per month for the professional plan, which gets you 20 flows. And if you want 50 flows, you can get their professional plan. But
and buying credits and flow is much cheaper than Zapier, because you do in these tools, you have like a per action limit of credits. And of course you can add more when you need them. Zapier gets very expensive. Flow is not bad at all. Well worth the price point.
Yep. And last year we did a Zoho Flow full product overview where we're going to step you through that entire application. So if you're thinking about using it, check that out. Moving right along, Tyler, Zoho Forms. What do you say? It's a form generating application. So you want a form, you want it to go on your website, you want to email a form, you'd like to embed a form, you'd like it standalone. It does an exceptionally good job of that. One of the nice things about it, you've got several ways of managing and putting the forms out into the world, if you were. If you want to, you can just do a little bit of JavaScript code that you can embed in your website, and then you never, ever have to touch your website again. You basically can just make the change inside Zoho Forms and it will automatically appear on your website. Now, if you change the length and things like that, you may want to go in and change some sizing on your website. But basic changes to pick lists or any of those kind of things, you don't have to do it if you handle it that way. If you embed it as straight up HTML, then you're going to have to make those changes every time. But they made a lot of nice changes to it. You now can kind of have page by page questions, right? What's the one that's famous for that, Tyler?
Like Ninja Forms, kind of similar to Ninja Forms.
Yeah, there's another one out there that people use, but you've got a lot of ways. You can have pages. You can go question by question by question by question. You can automatically have it fill in data from the CRM. So maybe you're wanting to send out something to customers to say, please update your data. And so most of it's filled in, and then just go ahead and make those updates and save it, and it comes back into the CRM. There's a lot you can do with this application. It's included with Zoho One. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's basically a nice form builder. They seem to constantly improve it.
It's a great application. I mean, direct integration to most major Zoho apps where you'd want the data to go. Also an integration to Zoho Flow. So if you need to integrate it to like two places at once, all good. Just point one of them through the Flow side. One thing that I always really like to highlight with Zoho Forms, and a reason I try to guide a lot of our clients to use it, even if they're already using like Gravity Forms or JotForm or some of those other tools, is Forms does a phenomenal job at pulling in UTM parameters from Google Ads. So they have a pre-built little integration, a little bit of JavaScript that you put on your website. You add some hidden fields, UTM campaign, ad group, etc., and it will grab them. And it will just send them right along with the data, right into your CRM, right into wherever you need it. So oftentimes, and so it's not that you can't do that with other form builders. It's just that this works great, and we know it works, and it's easy. So well worth using for capturing that type of data, especially about like ad spend, Google Ads, Meta, wherever you're doing your paid ad placements.
Yep. And we've got a great video on how to set up that UTM tracking as well. So, Anyway, great application. I would say the only downside to Zoho Forms is form ownership can be a bit tricky in Zoho Forms, meaning Tyler created the form, Tyler owns the form, even though somebody else may be the super admin of the entire, they can't get data, they can't do things, you can share it, but there's some functionality around collaboration on forms internally that I would like to see addressed.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. And moving along, Zoho Learn. This application has come a long way. This is not an external LMS, learning management system. This is an internal LMS. So you would use this for your team, various training videos, training documents, all those kind of things. They all live inside Zoho Learn. We use it extensively at Zenatta. We've set it up for a whole bunch of clients as well. So if you are looking for internal training, this kind of is really the application for you.
Yeah, it keeps getting better and better. Just last week, they rolled out Learn 2.0. That now it's now SCORM compliant, which honestly might actually solve one of our previous cons on here was challenges in importing quizzes. I bet you now if you format them as SCORM compliant, you can. Included with Zoho One, so great place to host all of that internal knowledge. This app just keeps getting better and better and better. So again, just well worth taking a look at if you are in need of an LMS platform. It's unlikely you need to go pay for one external if you are on that Zoho One subscription.
Yep. All righty. And then moving along, Zoho Lens. Crazy little application, but you've got someone who's out in the field. It's mobile, and you want to be able to see what they're looking at. Zoho Lens does that for you. Basically allows you to take a look at what they're looking at and guide them through. It's just a very boutique niche application, mostly for field technicians, but it just does its job.
Yeah, kind of the use case here for Lens, because we'll talk about Assist a little later, so important to differentiate the two. Lens is going to be like kind of augmented reality. So like you would send them a link, they would open this on a mobile device, show you what they're looking at with the camera, and then you can annotate on the screen. Like unplug that red one, don't unplug that black one, right? That type of information. One of the things with Lens that's really nice, and it's the same with Zoho Assist, we're actually, I think, Brett, one of our clients going to build this out, is that it has an integration directly for Zoho Desk. So like if a client were to submit a ticket to you, you could respond to that ticket and give them the opportunity to join a Lens call. I don't know if you call it a call, a share, whatever you want to call that. Connect to their device with Lens, and they could show you what's going on site. So I like it with that integration functionality because that makes it a lot easier to see like how I might actually use this. Is, you know, a request comes in and I can respond and say, hey, I kind of need to see what you're looking at. You know, join this link and I'll take a look. Well worth exploring if you need it, right? A lot of people aren't going to need it, but hey, it's included, it's there, and it's integrated with Desk.
Yeah, it's one of those. Every now and then, Zoho just comes out with an application that I'm like, but I wonder why that application, because they built so many applications. This is included in the Zoho One bundle, as well as, we haven't talked about this yet, the Remotely bundle. By the way, all the bundles are also covered on the resource page. So if you ever want to go find out what's in each bundle, you can just click on the bundles. And while you're there, it will kind of take you through all of the bundles and the pricing and all the bundles. And you can click and say, wow, what's in this Remotely bundle? And it will tell you all of the things that are in the Remotely bundle and the different kinds of bundles. So it depends, you know, what you're going to get there, and then the various pricing on them. So anyway, moving right along from Lens, Zoho Notebook. Well, is Evernote still around? I hear they ran into trouble.
They're kind of getting, they're I don't know that they will be forever, and they're jacking their prices up big time. I think they got bought out by like a PE firm, and they're wringing out the towel at this point to get everything they can out of it. Zoho Notebook is, you know, a note-taking application similar to Evernote's. Great tool. I'll tell you, I am not particularly picky when it comes to note applications. I don't need a ton of craziness. This one's real good. Just recently, they added like collections, so you can more easily organize their folders. Right? They're calling them collections. Nested collections is what they're called. But yeah, you're much more easy now to keep things organized, put them in groups. They've built a lot out of collaboration. That used to be a big weak point in Notebook because it was almost impossible to really collaborate on a note or a set of notes, and they've done a lot to resolve that. So they finally added their CRM integration just, I think, late last year, and something Brett had been asking for years. So great tool. Why not type of application. If you're in Zoho One, it's probably good enough for you, unless you're doing something real crazy in your notebook that it might not support.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Zoho, of Google Keep. Which is nobody ever talks about, but that's Google's note-taking application. But it's nice. It's a note-taking app. It has checklists. You can do whatever you want. You can drop images in. You can do just a ton with it. And like you said, for years I railed about, well, it'd be nice to take a note and attach that note to the CRM. That implementation has been done. I don't think it's fantastic, but it's there. So anyway, there's your note-taking application. And moving on to Zoho Projects. We're going to talk about not one, not two, but three different project management apps during this show. And this is the first one that's going to come up, which is Zoho Projects. It is most similar to like a Microsoft project. So a full-blown project management tool. Most of your people who get the project management certifications, was that the PMP? This is the kind of tool that they are used to using. And Zoho they're constantly making improvements to this. It's a very good application. You can set up templated projects. You can tie it into the CRM. So if you close a deal and they bought this, and that's going to require a project, and a certain template can automatically be created, and the project can automatically be created. Nice integration into the CRM. You can view where you are in the project, view the projects, go through. So anyway, a nice application. That it is why it's in our definitely category. It is included in Zoho One, and it's included in CRM Plus. The premium plans are. Anything to add on this?
Yeah, I think really the only one thing that's always important. So this is in the definitely category. If this is how you run your projects, right? Because there are things that you cannot change about Zoho Projects, like if you don't have projects that are good for like building in a Gantt chart, this probably isn't the right tool, right? But if you have longer projects, lots of dependencies, right, need to be able to track like, hey, we're behind or ahead of schedule on this like fixed project timeline, that's where Projects is going to shine. So if that type of project is what you need to manage, you can definitely use this. They're doing a ton of work on it. You know, they keep adding more and more functionality. One thing I really like now is there's a pretty robust set of templates. So if you wanted to make a template now, you don't have to start from scratch. You can kind of use an example and build it from there. Honestly, one of the most common things that we build for customers is exactly what Brett said. A deal gets closed won or an invoice gets paid, and we're launching a project based on a template. So that is some bread and butter stuff. Tons of Zoho users use the app just like that, and works pretty darn well. Can be a bit tricky to learn. It's a heavy application. If you're used to Microsoft projects, you're going to be good to go. If you're used to Monday, it's going to look complicated when you get started. Right. But once you're over the hump, absolutely great tool if this is how you run your projects.
Yeah. And moving along to one of Zoho's more interesting applications, SalesIQ. This is kind of like a Swiss Army knife of various tools for your website. It is going to be your chatbot. It's going to track traffic on your site. It's going to tie into Desk, where you can open up real-time support. I mean, there's just so much that SalesIQ does. It's kind of hard to cover, but we do have entire webinars where we take you through each and everything that SalesIQ can do, how you can set it up, how you can track channels, various properties, various web properties. It's a fascinating application.
Yeah, really good one. Tight integrations for CRM and Desk, like you're mentioning there, right? And you do want to get into those settings and choose how you want those to work. Like by default, it'll try to send a lead every time someone lands on the website. Most people don't want that, but a couple little settings that you'll need to get into, but great tool. One of the things we really love is the Zobot functionality. So being able to do like an active chat bot that says, hey, I see you're on the site. What do you want to talk about? That'll just increase the number of people that you end up interacting with that are on the website. And like you mentioned, it kind of behind the scenes, it's doing some phenomenal web tracking. So you know, like every visit, every particular event on the site that a visitor ID took part in, and all of that syncs over to Zoho Analytics to be used in your reporting. So great tool. Again, like not a big reason to use a competitor if you have the licensing included for SalesIQ. It's one of the best.
And just fun to do at the end of the evening. It has a very bizarre visitor tracking graphic, which are these concentric circles that kind of go on in. And when a person comes into your website, they fly into the outer circle, and the longer they're on, they kind of move into the inner circle. And you can look at them as, what pages they're on. It allows chat agents at any time, like they're noticing somebody's on this page, they can actually click in and just start a chat with that person in real time. But just sit there with a glass of wine and watch people move around your website through the circles. It's a great way to spend an evening. You've probably never done that? No,
never done that. Maybe I will today.
It's worth a try. All right. Moving on. Very simple product. It's a good product, though. Zoho Sheet is a spreadsheet tool. It's a cool spreadsheet tool. You would think, we're going to release a spreadsheet, and once we release it, it's done because it's a spreadsheet. But no, the Zoho Sheet team does not stop. They are continuing to add functions I never would have thought of, functions that don't exist in Excel and they don't exist in Google Sheet. They exist here. A really, really nice, full-featured spreadsheet application. If you are moving, here's the caveat. You've got Zoho Sheet, Zoho Writer, Zoho, what's the other one? The presentation.
Show.
Each one of these is going to pose challenges in that the interface is not if you're moving from Microsoft Office over to here, people are like, it's different. It is different. If you're moving from Google over to here, it's not so different, but it's got some little changes to it. It's the biggest problem when anybody wants to move to these kind of applications. They're rock solid. They're great, but there's going to be a learning curve because most people have been living in Microsoft Office forever and they've been working in Excel forever, and it's going to be different. So just to throw that caveat out there, oftentimes it's just easier if you're making the big switch to Zoho and you buy Zoho 1 and you're all on board and people are like, oh, we're switching to mail. I'm like, well, your team's been using Outlook forever, and let's minimize the chaos and maybe take things in baby step over a period of time. But other than that, great spreadsheet application, included in One, included in Workplace, included in Xylem, included in Remotely, and it's free. So
forget about Xylem.
Xylem, that's for families, right?
Yep, it's like a family usage of the Zoho Office suite.
Yeah. All right, and moving on, as we talked about, Zoho Show. This is PowerPoint, their own version of PowerPoint. It is in our definitely category. I will say that even though I've been using this for years, I still kind of prefer some of the other tools that are out there just from a regular presentation standpoint, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's a good tool.
Yeah, it does kind of what you would expect. There are some cool little shiny things in it. Like they have a cool little icon builder tool where you can kind of superimpose shapes and remove them. And that's more of just a little fun thing in there. Again, it's in the definitely category because if you need to make a presentation, you can surely do it here. You're not going to run into anything that's a big issue or problem with it. Like you're mentioning, Brett, for a decent amount of our clients, we'll move over to Zoho for most things, but maybe not all, which is totally fine. So some people just choose to keep their Google or their Microsoft account for mail and some of the office tools. So we don't see a ton of usage of this one. I think people are a little picky. They've got their templates, they've got their stuff all set up in their existing tool. But this one is just fine. The one thing I do want to highlight that's really cool with this is that it can integrate with CRM and analytics dashboards. So you can embed them and that data will stay live. So if I was making a PowerPoint or a show, you see how strong that brand association is. If I was making a show document on a Monday and I was going to present the following Friday, I don't need to go in and update all my charts. I can just reference real analytics tables and know that it's going to be live when I get there on that date. That's pretty cool. That is a pretty darn cool feature that I always like to highlight. But again, it's one that we don't see a ton of usage for, but it's a solid app. No big reason that you couldn't use it if you wanted to.
And moving along, and I'm so happy because this is the first time this app just recently moved up to the definitely category, and this is Zoho Sign, which is their digital signature application. The reason it was never in this category before is it didn't have very good user permissions. So you basically can be an admin and you see every document that's in there, or a user and you can only see your own documents. Thank goodness that was solved here. And now you basically have Really, really nice user management. It is a nice application. We put it in the definitely because, again, this is going to be 95% of the companies that are out there. The one thing I think it's still missing, Tyler, is identity verification through third-party services. I know they're
more and more. They like recently added the identity verification where it will ask you like background questions about you. You know, did you own this make of car? Which one of these addresses have you not lived at? That is now available, and they're doing that in every like geographical region. Like they did a lot of those for Europe first, and then they started in the US. I think earlier this year they rolled out the kind of more advanced identity verification. So it's getting there. If it's not there yet for the specific verification that you need, let Zoho know, because I know it's a big priority for them to make this compliant for basically every different industry and use case. Like Brett mentioned, the big problem always was those user profiles and permissions. I will say it's a little clunky how you have to set them up, but it works totally fine. And they're going to continue to improve it. And now you can get very granular where certain people can only see very specific subsets of documents. Again, it's one of those tools, especially when you think about price comparisons. Adobe Sign, DocuSign, like those are not cheap platforms. Those are very expensive. And given that this is included with Zoho One, I mean, you can end up saving like $60, $70, $80 per user compared to those other tools. And that's not even talking about automation credits, right? The price per an automated document here is like 50, 60 cents. Adobe Sign's like $1.25. DocuSign's right around there. So huge cost saving potential with Zoho Sign. I always like to highlight that because signing apps are not cheap. And this is just included with Zoho One. You just use it with no additional cost.
Yep. And the API credits are inexpensive, as you say, comparatively. And it is a really nice, if you're using CRM, you're sending out documents for signature, you can automate the entire process. You can just click it. It's going to send it out for Zoho Sign. When they sign the document, you can then move deals through stages. You can fire off. It's just a really fantastic application. Highly recommended. All right, moving along, Zoho Survey. You've heard of SurveyMonkey? Well, this is Zoho's version of SurveyMonkey. It's a very full-featured survey tool. You can auto-populate fields. People can save the surveys and come back to the surveys. Just a great tool for setting out
really tight CRM integration, which I know a lot of people like, is, you know, you can just very easily drop a survey link into like a CRM email template, and it can use that to pre-fill all the data. Really, my only annoyance with Survey is that it really likes getting users to make new departments on accident. That's a very minor complaint, but it really tries to trick you into making a new department when you don't need to. It's just one little thing to look out for. While we're on the topic, a lot of people ask, you know, surveys, forms, why, you know, when would I use one versus the other? Generally, the rule of thumb is if someone is landing on a site to fill something out, use a form. If you're sending something to them to fill out, use a survey, just because some of the integrations are just designed to be used that way. Now, that being said, you could just use forms for everything if you know how to send with URL parameters. But as a general rule of thumb, that's kind of how they break down, is an outbound request will be a survey, an inbound capture will be a form.
Yep. And it's included in Zoho One, CRM Plus, Marketing Plus, and really cheap if you want to buy it as a standalone application as well. But solid application. Hey, and now we talked about not one, not two, but three project management tools. Here is the newest project management tool to make it to Zoho, and this is Zoho Tables. If you are familiar with Airtables, if you're familiar with Smartsheets, that's Zoho Tables. The crazy thing about this application is it was just released, 3-4 months ago?
Something like that, maybe even less. Yeah.
Maybe even less, and it's already in our definitely cat. It's a solid application. Out of the gate, They did a really, really nice job with this.
Yeah, so great tool. Think, you know, an Airtable, a Smartsheet, like Brett's saying there, directly included in Zoho One. You do need to ask them to add it. It will be formally included soon, and then we'll update our resource library. But great tool, easy to set up, lots of templates right out of the gate. I always like to see that personally. When you have a tool like this where it kind of requires a lot of customization, I think it's a lot easier for most people to start with something, right? And then get in there and tweak it, adjust it, improve it from there. Really, the only downside here is you are probably going to have to customize it. You know, we're like Something like projects, you just get in there, put your template in, done. It's just off to the races. You're going to want to tweak and adjust and make this work for you, but that's exactly what it's for, is to create a customizable environment. Other one, right now, they're a little limited on direct integrations for other Zoho apps. I would expect that will be a short-term problem. There is a really nice one for CRM that we're going to make a tip video on here soon, where you can kind of sync a whole module over and work with it in tables. That is very slick. I really like that. But yeah, overall, great tool, easy to use, easy to spin up, nice looking, easy to automate, well worth taking a look at. If you run into projects and you think, this is a bit overkill, then go into tables, launch from their project management template, and it's basically a simpler version of Zoho projects that you can give it a try.
Yep, good application. I mean, and since it was just released, Tyler was on it and gave you a very nice beginner's tutorial. So if you want to get going with that application, give it a shot. Personally, it's my favorite form of project management. I mean, this just for down and dirty, you need to manage a project. You can share, it's just a great application. So really happy. Hey, need a password manager? Zoho's got you covered with Zoho Vault. So if you're using 1Password or any of the other LastPass, any of the password management tools that are out there, and you switch over to Zoho, it has gone through a ton of changes in the last few years. The UI's improved. The browser extensions have improved. Mm-hmm. Everything's improved. It's a password manager, not much more you can say. It handles two-factor authentication. It handles...
That was a big update when they added that. Yeah. And wow, that overhaul was all the way back in 2020. So if you had looked at this app before 2020 and you went, this is the most confusing, convoluted thing I've ever seen, you were right. If you haven't looked at it since, look again, because it's much better now. Like, they used to call things such weird words, like a vault would be a chamber and your password's a secret, and all these Harry Potter references going on. They've really simplified it down. The UI is much cleaner now. Cool integrations too, like you could kind of connect it to CRM and actually say, like, this is a password for this account or related to this client, which I've always thought is a pretty interesting little feature. Free forever plan, that is really free forever. They got a lot of customers when was it LastPass? They
charged.
killed
they got rid of their free
used
forever.
to have their free forever plan, and then it wasn't. It was now $1 or $2. So included with Zoho One, included with People Plus. We don't use it internally just because we have to log in and out of Zoho accounts in that browser. So it doesn't really work for us in particular. But if that was ever solved, we'd be on it, next day. Yeah. It's a great tool.
I use it personally. So, personally, I've got it all dialed in and it's just fantastic. I mean, it's a great application. Works great on mobile too. I mean, it does the job. So very, very, very nice application. And moving along into the W, Zoho WorkDrive. This is basically OneDrive, Google Drive. It's the drive. It's where you store all your files. It's where you manage all your folders. They do so many nifty things with this that other Drive applications don't. The tagging, the metadata, there's so much you can do around this. But otherwise, just think of it as any kind of online storage system, whatever you're used to using. If you've got Zoho One, if you've got Marketing Plus, if you've got Workplace, this is going to kind of be your spot to do that. The integration with CRM is super nice. Storage is super nice. It's just, there's no downside on this. If you're moving, if you're switching to Zoho, you might as well move your online drive over to here.
Yeah, one of the nice things with this, I mean, again, kind of thinking about that projects integration, like the WorkDrive to CRM integration is something that we set up for 70, 80% of our customers, right? Where we're creating unique folders or folder structures for each account and deal and kind of relevant record working through the system. We also use this a lot for document generation. We like to keep everything cloud-based. So like when you create a proposal from a mail merge, you can automatically put it into a WorkDrive folder so that you're never having that like version 1, version 2, where you're downloading, uploading with edits. Great tool, generous storage, great API that's easy to work with. It's a great application in the Zoho suite.
All right, and wrapping up the definitely category, it's Zoho Writer. We talked about this. It's part of the Office suite that comes with Zoho. So it is going to be part of Zoho One. It's going to be part of Zoho Workplace. It's going to be part of Zoom. It's going to be part of Remotely. It is their word processor. It is an excellent word processor. You can do a ton with it. It integrates beautifully into CRM for mail merge documents, to creating proposals, documents, contracts. I don't know. We have it down here. Our con is the UI could use a little bit of a refresh. Maybe it does take a little bit of getting used to. It is laid out. The ribbons are they're on the side. You've got different. It's got a whole different look and feel to it, but it's exceptionally powerful, and you can pretty much do anything you want with it. It just takes a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, this is a lot of the times where a lot of those mail merge documents are going to live, right? You've got all your templates here. You can easily use any of your writer documents in automations within other apps. And, they've got all these AI features and functionality. It's one of those tools, there's like a learning curve to it, but we talk about it sometimes on the CRM Zen show. Like, you never really see these types of meaningful updates come for like Google Docs, right? Still just Google Docs. And they've just added so much to Writer over time that it's become a great tool. I've even come around. I used to be a Writer denier. I did not like it. I couldn't get past the UI, but they've improved it, and it's a great tool.
All right. Well, with that, Tyler, we've wrapped up the definitelys. Now let's move on to the probablys. All right. So our probably category, Tyler, these are apps that we can recommend them to people. There are some caveats. These apps usually have one or two key missing features that might apply to a specific business, but for the most part, they are good to go. So with that, we'll kick it right off with billing. This application used to be called Zoho Subscriptions. They've kind of updated it now, added some extra additional features to it. So it still handles all your subscriptions, but it is basically a nice subscription app, but there are other subscription apps out there that have a lot of features that other people need, especially around add-ons and things like that, and management of subscriptions in real time. There are some things that are just kind of missing from this. Like, I bought X number of licenses on this subscription. I should just be able to go in through the subscription and change it. There are workarounds. We mentioned Z Portal. They actually have some better handling of subscriptions through their portal, through API calls to make the changes on the back end. But for a lot of companies, you've got a product. It's a basic subscription. You're just trying to collect X dollars per month, per quarter, every 6 months. You can set up the basis that you want to annually, whatever it is. This can get the job done for you.
Yeah, and it's one of those tools. I mean, it's a strong probably is where I would put this. Yeah. It does have a couple of the little odds and ends. It is really solid. Like, some of the things that you'll have challenges with is kind of like you're mentioning on the front end. It doesn't have a good configurator for like a user to grab and go and kind of build their own subscription. They can kind of do it in the portal once they have a subscription, but it does turn it into a two-step process. It also has a dangerous habit of loving to make duplicates. So you'll normally have to write a little script just to make sure things get reconciled on the back end automatically.
Yes.
But altogether, a great tool. Definitely one that most people are going to be fine in using and managing their subscriptions and automated billing through it.
Yep, included in Zoho One and included in Finance Plus. So we've got the nice little kind of full product tutorial kind of getting started with it as well. That was with subscriptions. We'll do one on billings and talk about some of those new features. But if you have basic subscriptions, like Tyler said, good to go. And moving along, Zoho Books. Again, a very, very, very strong, probably getting better all of the time. Had some major hiccups over the last year and a half that have all been worked out with bank synchronization and various other things. But it is, it's great. Couple of things. It doesn't support progress billing. We talk about this all the time. Construction companies, it's just probably not for you, right? Those kind of things where you're doing the progress billing. And it doesn't integrate with most of the major payroll providers. Paychex has a subsidiary called Sure Payroll, which is for businesses under 100. It does have an integration with Sure Payroll. And of course, it'll work with Zoho Payroll, which we'll talk about soon. But that is that kind of becomes a big downside. So you've got a lot of people, you talk to them, and they're on QuickBooks, and they're using QuickBooks for all their payroll. and it's kind of a non-starter, right? Are you going to switch to a third-party system? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a fairly good application from a bookkeeping perspective.
Yeah, really solid. Always important to highlight it's not like a full-scale ERP. Even when you connect it to something like inventory, it's not a direct competitor for like a NetSuite or something like that. One way that a lot of people use Books that I think is pretty slick is kind of as your transaction management tool, and then you kick the data over to QuickBooks Online or something at the end, right? So like people can manage their whole estimate, sales order, invoice process because it's so tightly connected to the deals and to the tickets and to these other records. And then if your cloud-based accounting service has an API, then we'll just write the data over at the end, and you still get all of that reconciliation on the accounting side of the house. So lots of people can use it as their home base for accounting, but even if you can't, you can still use it just as like a great tool to send out estimates and invoices and purchase orders and bills. Well worth taking a look at inside of Zoho. I will say a lot of the times it comes later. It's like, hey, let's start with CRM. Let's get that built out. Then let's talk about a Books migration, because they can be pretty big projects. They can be pretty daunting. A lot of data cleanup to do, a lot of work to do. It's not just like a pick it up over here and put it down in Books. There's a big middle step that will go into that. But yeah, great tool. Nicely integrated with really the entire Zoho application suite.
All right, and moving right along, Zoho Campaigns. Best way to describe Zoho Campaigns, again, comparing this to other applications, are there Constant Contact, MailChimp, that kind of thing. It sends very good at just sending newsletters. You can send up basic drip campaigns. We'll talk about in a little bit, also in this same category, is a product called Marketing Automation. So we're going to talk about Marketing Automation in a minute. They are very, very similar. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, if you've never used any of these applications, you're about to start. And if you're a Zoho One user, just skip campaigns and go straight to Marketing Automation. That seems to be the direction that Zoho is heading. All of the major changes are being made to Marketing Automation. It does everything Campaigns does at this point in time, I believe, Tyler, and some other stuff. We've had issues with it in the past, but it was the go-to. If you're a year ago, it'd be don't use Marketing Automation, only use Campaigns, because Marketing Automation has too many issues. These apps are virtually identical in so many ways. So it can be a bit confusing for new users that are out there, but it is just a down and dirty drip campaign, email, that kind of thing.
Yeah, nice integrations for really most Zoho applications. So you're able to pull in all of your data. We'd always like to highlight the best way to use campaigns is kind of as an extension of CRM, right? So that we don't want to really push data here first most of the time. We want to pull it out of a CRM application. They've built a lot into this for like their automated drip campaigns. So being able to put a lead on a drip and then notify the CRM if they get above a certain score, that is a really powerful workflow to be able to automate in the background. I would say like the couple little odds and ends in it, some people don't like the WYSIWYG kind of template editor that I kind of agree with. Every now and then it gets a little funky in there. Sometimes you'll have an issue with the sync. You get in touch with Zoho, it gets sorted out, but you'll see little bumps and bruises in this tool, which is really the main reason it's in probably. Like the functionality would put it indefinitely, but it's sometimes you'll just run into a hitch when you're building it out. And so occasionally someone might choose to stick in their current tool, but we always recommend taking a crack at campaigns because it'll likely work for you.
Yep. So that's kind of Zoho Campaigns included in Zoho One. It's included in CRM Plus. Zoho One's kind of interesting. A lot of times when you're using these applications, it's like, how many contacts can I load in? With Zoho One, you get 5,000 to start and then 5,000 for each additional user that you have. So you basically, that's kind of how that works with that as well. And moving along, Zoho Commerce. So Tyler, this is their Shopify. This is their e-commerce store. If you are simple, just a few products, yeah, this is probably for you. If you've got an extremely complex online presence, you're trying to manage a whole bunch of different things, I would say you probably don't want to use Zoho Commerce. But it's, most people I think are using Woo or they're using Shopify. There's a lot more features, a lot more ability, a lot more customization. And so there have been a few instances where this is the perfect tool. Someone's got a couple simple things they want to put in here, and
Yep.
away they go.
I think for simple e-commerce, this will work all right. One use case that I will always highlight it works fantastic for is if you need to have a separate website for like distributors or resellers to buy product, mostly because the front end UI is generally a little less important for that type of customer. And it will tie into your price lists inside of inventory. So when like one of those resellers log in, they actually get their prices directly on on the commerce platform. So that is a use case that I think, honestly, this works better than like most other e-commerce tools that I've seen. But for more of your traditional direct-to-consumer type of selling approach, yeah, WooCommerce or Shopify is just going to be a better application.
All right. And moving right along, Zoho Directory. This is basically their answer to Active Directory from Microsoft. This can come in handy with Zoho One, where you can kind of tie this in, and there's a sync. You can pull in, Active Directory, and you can do some other things. It's relatively new. I don't know. It's one of those things we hardly see much use for. You can in some larger organizations, it does seem to make sense because of the way you can set it up.
The case where the only time I've really seen it used is if you've got multiple Zoho apps, but you're not on Zoho One. And you want to have one place where you can permission these variety of Zoho apps. Reality is if you're on Zoho One, this is just baked in to the admin panel of the Zoho One kind of like page. And a lot of the times, if you were on like CRM campaigns, projects, and you're using directory, you talk to us and we go, you would save money just switching over to Zoho One, right? So we end up not working with this a ton, but there are those cases where maybe you've got like a handful of basic accounts and you want an easy way to like give people access. You could find yourself using Zoho Directory.
All right, Zoho Expense. This app's getting better and better and better. My guess is that next year, if we're to do this, it's probably going to be up in the definitely category. But it does lack some of the features of a full-blown expense application like Qntrl. But it is getting, they're making tons of improvements to this application. So, it's got some, like you say, occasionally there's some mystery bugs with it. But if you are on Zoho Books and you've made that leap, this application is probably going to get it done for you. There's they've really improved it around airlines, which airlines you can use, cars. I mean, they're just more and more and more of the big features that you find in a full-fledged expense app have been added into this application. So, I think it's close to moving into the definitely category, but probably just missing a couple key things, almost like Zoho Sign was. It's included in Zoho One. It's included in Finance Plus. It is relatively inexpensive compared to any other expense app that is out there. Mobile app's been refreshed over the last year and a half. It's, I don't know, anything you add?
No, I mean, they've improved a lot within it in terms of kind of the approval processes, and they've added new functionality for managing trips and travel kind of with specific workflows and processes around it. So yeah, it's one that's moving further and further up towards that definitely category. There are just a couple odds and ends. Like some of the ways it integrates with company cards is just a little funky. And not everybody likes that, but great tool, ties all into Zoho Books, which is kind of the biggest benefit, so that all of that stuff just gets written directly in without any pain and suffering once those approvals are given on any particular expense report.
All right. And then FSM, Zoho Field Service Management. This product was released a long time ago, 2020, kind of yanked off the market, kind of put back in. For the most part, it is good. It is missing a few things. Offline mode's a little rough. They kind of put up an offline, you can get 100 records, but that doesn't really make sense. There are still a few things that probably need to be improved with this across the board. The big competitor to this, if you're looking at this application, you say this doesn't work for me, you can look at a product called Zooper, which has very nice Zoho app integration as well. But we've spent a bit of time with this. You spent more time with this than probably anybody, and you kind of feel like it's getting close, huh?
Yeah, it's solid. I mean, like it's good. It's simple, right? It's not going to do every little thing, and it's pretty customizable, so you can get it to do things that it might not do natively. really the biggest reason, like this would probably go up to like a weak definitely rather than a strong probably, if not for the fact that the mobile app does not have an offline mode, which for an FSM tool, like that's tough, man. You're going to be in a lot of spaces where you just don't have great connectivity. And without having an offline mode, you take the risk of like the user takes a note, they think it went through, it didn't. That just frustrates people and it makes them not want to use the application. So definitely just a couple little things that it needs to get cleaned up on, and then it will be good to go.
And it is, I thought this was in Zoho One. Is it completely standalone? You can request it to be in
Standalone
Zoho
because
One?
they charge on a per appointment basis, because you may have a lot of 1099 or contractors that you don't want to have a Zoho One license for. So it
Yeah.
actually ends up being cheaper for a lot of people because it's carved out.
Nice. Nice. Alrighty. And moving along, Zoho Inventory. It's an inventory management tool. It's a necessary thing if you're going to use Zoho as an ERP. You want to tie it into your CRM. You want to tie it into Zoho Books. You need to tie it into everything. It does that. It has some quirkiness around kitting and various other things. The UI is can be a little confusing to people, but it's a solid inventory management tool, and it's been getting better over time. And, it's still in this maybe category, but like I say, for most companies, this is probably going to work just fine. There's a lot of little magical things we can do on the back end to make it work. If you are using an e-commerce tool like Shopify or WooCommerce, it works, but it has to be set up very particularly at the very beginning. There's a lot of kind of steps to follow. So, that's, I guess those are the big caveats around it. Anything again to add?
Yeah, some of the nice things is the direct integration with various like selling platforms, right? So Shopify, you've got a direct. WooCommerce, you use a plugin for, so a little different. But even like Amazon, eBay, some of those other platforms, you can just connect directly in and have all of those orders just reconcile in as sales orders. A couple of the little downsides, like for most people, the reporting isn't going to get you there. So you might need to plan on using analytics to expand that a little bit. But great tool for simple inventory management. Even things that are a little less simple, like maybe you're kitting and doing some bundling, it'll work fine. Just don't try to use it to manage like a full scale manufacturing process. It's not NetSuite, it's not Fishbowl, right. It's not going to quite have that level of functionality, but it is a solid tool that you can use for most of your inventory needs.
And moving right along, Zoho Invoice. This is an odd one. Of course, invoicing is part of Zoho Books. This is just a standalone, down and dirty if you just wanted an application to handle invoicing. Integrates into the CRM, part of Finance Plus, but not really, because if you're buying Finance Plus, you're buying books, and it's all integrated there as well. Again, very few use cases for this as a standalone basis at all. Other than, there's really none that I can think of. It's just kind of an entry point. This is a little bit of a candy. Come try Invoice, then maybe you move to Zoho Books. But
it's definitely a gateway drug to Zoho Books. Once you're on Books, you kind of stop using this. But again, I think the use case might be someone has CRM. They want an easy little tool they can use to send invoices that they're going to reconcile elsewhere, and so maybe they go with just Invoice. But we're so used to everybody being on Zoho One that you probably just have Books and you just do your invoicing there. It's really the same thing at the end of the day.
And moving along, Zoho landing page, relatively new. This is for setting up standalone landing pages. So you're selling a product. Maybe you're putting it out on Google and you want to track everybody that comes in, or you're running a special promotion and you want to set up a separate landing page for that. It's just drag and drop, set up your landing pages, publish it, and track what's going on. There's really nothing more than you're just setting up landing pages. That's kind of it. It's they have their own, Zoho does have their own website tool we're going to talk about. But landing page is just a little standalone thing for building landing pages. Maybe you're on WordPress and you're going to build the landing pages here because you want to track them.
We
Pretty
do
easy.
generally recommend on this, you can directly integrate it with Zoho Forms or embed Zoho Forms on it. Always a good option just so that you've got the
Yep.
most functionality when the form actually gets submitted. Um, Really, the only reason it's in the probably, not the definitely, is it's just a little limited and a little clunky when you're like designing the page. It's a newer app, so they're going to continue to improve it. But super easy to use. Take an afternoon, you got 10 landing pages built out, and you can get them posted, up and running, and in front of potential buyers easily and quickly.
Yep. And if you're watching us on YouTube, on the pricing here, it's $12 per month billed annually. The essential plan is not the most expensive plan, but it's a nice product across the board. All right, and moving right along, Zoho Mail. This one, I tell you, we get asked about the most. It's a solid email application. It does everything you would pretty much want if you are using Zoho Mail. If Zoho is your mail, that's where your mail is hosted, and you're leaving it there, this is a great app for you. IMAP can be stretched. I love Zoho Mail. I love all of the features of it, but I've tried to IMAP it to various. It's very buggy on an iPad. So if you just want to use it as, hey, I need a mail client, and I'm going to use this as my mail client, it's probably not going to work for you very well. But if you're hosting your email with Zoho, if you've gone all in with Zoho, it's very good across the board, and it'll handle almost anything you want to do. Great filters. Just, I don't know, it's not a lot to say. It's an email client.
Yep. Does the job. I think the thing that we always highlight with it is that like really most integrations between like CRM, Desk, other apps with mail, you can do with Gmail and Outlook. So it's not like an urgent need. You don't have to move over here to tie it in, which is why a lot of people don't. They kind of keep their existing mail client and just integrate that directly in.
But it does. Once you're using this application, it has calendar built into it. It has tasks. It has all of the things you would want. It has super slick little integrations with other Zoho applications. So when you're in email, you can quickly add someone into the CRM. Zoho has made a lot of plugins for other applications that do this, but it does it all natively. But the ability to pull in those apps as widgets and kind of have, real-time visibility while you're in email, it's very, very, very good. So again, including Zoho One, Workplace, Zillium, very, very cheap if you just want to try it on your own. Probably the cheapest email, if you're just one is, man, I really need a good email client. It's just ultra cheap, so worth giving a look at. And moving along to Zoho Marketing Automation. We talked about this earlier when we were talking about Zoho campaigns. I'm hoping next year, this is in the definitely category. It has come a long, long way. We are in the process of migrating to it currently. We're still on campaigns. There have been a lot of hiccups. If you're on Zoho One and you're using campaigns, don't even think about moving right now because there's just a lot of problems that you're going to encounter along the way. But they're working on fixing that. This kind of takes campaigns. So if you were to say, if we said that Zoho Campaigns is MailChimp and Constant Contact, Marketing Automation is HubSpot. It is, Marketo. It's full blown. Everything across the board is tied in, web tracking, you name it. It's excellent, can be an excellent app. It has just run into stumble after stumble after stumble, but I believe there's a commitment on Zoho's part that this seems to be it going forward. There's no turning back. And so hopefully they work out these final bugs.
Yeah, and this is kind of hoping to solve the challenge that we run into with campaigns, which is that it's not tightly integrated to the website. So like the idea of like, I want to create a segment of people that have spent more than 3 minutes on my blog, right? You just can't really do that with campaigns. And the goal here with marketing automation is to bring in some of the web tracking tools, create a more holistic environment where you can do those types of activities. So we're hopeful. It seems like it's getting most of the development. Right now, we say probably stick with campaigns. If you're starting fresh, maybe use marketing automation, but don't try the migration just quite yet. Not at least until everything is kind of easier and smoother.
Yep. And part of Zoho One. Moving along, Zoho People. Interesting application. It's in our probably applications. If you are looking for an HR management tool, this may or may not be for you. If I will say one thing about Zoho People is it is a dense, exceptionally dense tool. There are people I know who absolutely love Zoho People. They manage everything from it. It's got some great integrations across CRM. It doesn't integrate with many payroll tools. Again, kind of a bit of a problem there. When I say dense, you can click on a menu that has 10 choices, and that menu has 10 choices, and the next menu has 20 choices, and the next menu has 10 choices, and you literally get so deep into this thing, and you can never figure out how you got there to begin with. But it does a lot, and it has been, they're making some progress and some changes to it. And this is a big focus for them, people, payroll. This isn't going away. But it's like we talked about earlier with project management. It's kind of like, well, what do you like? What's your favorite project management tool? And there are people, maybe they're using Zenefits and they look at Zenefits and then they look at people and I'm like, I don't want that. Right. I don't know any type of HR tool that I can compare this to because it's got so much into it. But I would just say, take a look at it. Let your HR person take a look at it and say, oh, this is for me.
Yeah.
Then see where it goes from there.
The main reason this one goes in probably for us is one, you will find features that might or may not be compliant within particular state rules within the US, like some of the overtime calculations and things like that.
Yeah.
But the main thing is, it's just not the type of HR tool that's going to do healthcare administration, 401k, things like that. And now, to be clear, it's much cheaper than those tools, right? It's much cheaper than those tools by a wide margin, but it's just not there. It's not that type of application. And so if you're really looking for that end-all, be-all, everything app for HR, this is not it, because it's just not going to support that functionality anytime soon.
All right, and moving right along, Qntrl, strange application. This basically is workflow management across all your Zoho apps and other apps, and we have never deployed it to the best of my knowledge.
Yep. It's one of those non-Zoho One apps, used to be called Orkestly for like process orchestration is what it was originally for. It's one that, over on the left, why we rated it probably, we just don't see the use case. Like the idea would be that like you could house like all of your approvals and like input steps here and then manage that process against many apps. But generally we just don't find a reason to do it here. So not to say it's a bad app by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not necessary most of the time. So we don't end up, using it in the case where we could do it in a simpler way.
Well, when it was Orkestly, it was part of Zoho One, but it's Qntrl. It's on its own now, right?
It's now not part of Zoho One.
It's almost like its own product company, right? It's like Qntrl, part of Zoho. it's its own little deal out there. All right, moving right along. Zoho Recruit. Man, this app is getting better and better and better. I think this will be up in the definitely's next year. I mean, they've got it now for agencies. They've made so many changes to this application. You've got resume parsing. There's just a lot you can do. We use it internally. I like it a lot. I would say if you're just for most organizations out there, it's going to get it done from a recruitment basis. You can post to job boards, everything you need. So, I mean, we just did a massive posting to LinkedIn. Everything flowed through. We were able to, and now with all, they've made a ton of changes we've been talking about lately around scoring and filtering candidates and doing all those kind of things.
This is one where honestly the stars that we've got up here might need to be adjusted. I mean, it's definitely gotten a lot smoother over time to use. I think the biggest challenge people have is that it's a lot, right? It's a bit clunky, right? There's a lot of settings, a lot of buttons, a lot of modules that are in there by default. So a bit of a learning curve to it, but it's super nice. We use it religiously internally for all of our hiring. And again, it's one of those tools where you're on Zoho One, this is included. Take a crack at it before you go and spend money on an ATS outside of Zoho.
And if you're using Zoho CRM, it's basically the same interface, easy to get around. Not much of a change there. It's included in One. It's included in People Plus. Relatively inexpensive across the board. Even for any type of recruitment tool, this will stand up to them for a lot of bang for the buck. All right, Zoho Shifts. It's just, you've got a bunch of, it's managing shifts. You've got people coming in at various times, and this is not to be confused with Workerly, which is basically a temp management type of software. This is literally shift management. You're running a 24-hour business, you're running, the whatever, and you've got to manage all of the shifts and let people look at their shifts. And you've got people that are offsite. Again, I think we've seen very little. Have we ever had anybody have this specific need?
This is something that's built out of like a creator app that they kind of published as a standalone tool. Yeah. It's simple. It's very simple. The challenge is there aren't a lot of direct integrations, right? So you can't like push any of this to Payroll or push it to Books. So it's a little weak in that case, but really simple, really easy to use. So if you just need a lightweight app to schedule shifts, assign them out, and then have people check in and check out of them, this will work great. If you need to do anything else, this will probably not support it. So very simple, but not very robust.
Some of these come out of, I have no proof of this, but I hypothesize Zoho has got a massive enterprise client down in Australia. It's like the Costco of Australia, I think, right? A Costco of Australia, New Zealand. And I think some of these applications are specific to that client. And then they say, that worked out. Let's just pop it out here as an application. So that's Zoho Shifts. If you want simple shift management, it's cheap. And so, you might say, wow, this is a nice little standalone app for me. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it. Moving along to Zoho Social. Think Hootsuite. You want to manage all your social media in one place. This is a exceptionally well done app, well-featured app for that. I'm not even sure why it's not up in the definitely category. If I would say that it's got one issue, it's an issue that all of the social media management applications are facing right now, which is that all of the big platforms are taking away the APIs. So they're making it harder and harder for you to centrally manage your social media and to push everything out. That has nothing to do with Zoho. It affects every single one of those companies that is out there. But it does a good job. You can collaborate, you can schedule, you can post, you can push. It's kind of all of those things that you would want from a social media app. Few features. It lacks workflows is one of the things we put down here. I'm not sure how even necessary that would be at the end of the day, but it does, if you're going to look at a Hootsuite, there are a couple of more things maybe it's going to do, but at the end of the day, it's exceptionally well priced, very good application for most companies who are just doing basic social media stuff. They do actually have it. So if you're an agency, and we have agencies that run their social media through this, where they're managing it for multiple clients and multiple brands, and it does a good job. It's all there tied in one place. So I don't know what else to add to that.
Yeah, solid application. It's really those specific little things that might make you stick with what you got. But solid tool. It's going to work for vast majority of people.
Yep. And rounding out our project management tools, this is the third one. This is Zoho Sprints. This is agile development. If you are usually in software development, you might know of a tool called Jira. This basically is very similar to that, and it is a very nice project management tool. Lacks some third-party integrations that developers might need. That becomes kind of the big thing with it here. But what else do you say?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the biggest reason that it's in probably is it's just not Jira. If you pitch it to a software development team that's been using Jira for 10 years, they're going to go, well, it doesn't do this, doesn't do that, doesn't do this. Like tiny little things, right, throughout the application that look and feel differently, or maybe a little missed function here or there. So it's a solid tool for sprints. If you're working with a team that's not currently using Jira, you're going to have much better success at getting them to use this. You can carve out milestones or sections of a Zoho project and make them a sprint, which is kind of a nice little added functionality for it. Good tool. Take a shot at it. It's not Jira though, so expect it's going to be slightly less full featured, but will work for a large percentage of software development teams.
And if you want a crazy application, well, let's talk about TeamInbox. So most cases, people are going to want to use Zoho Desk. It can accomplish much of what TeamInbox does in a maybe different, I think, somewhat more elegant manner. But this is just a straight up email tool that allows you to create specific emails that go into a team inbox that everybody can see and everybody can work on. It is very rare you find a use case where this isn't a help desk kind of thing and better suited in Zoho Desk. Yeah. Someone's going to send an email to support at or info at or whatever at. Probably better off it as a ticket and handling it there than you are as it just sitting in an email in a team inbox. But this app was released 2021. I don't believe a single change has been made to it in the last 4 years. It's all it does is just brings that. That's it. You might find a need for it. We haven't, but you may. And so you can take a look at TeamInbox and see if that's for you. And then pretty new is Zoho Thrive. Tyler, I'm not sure this is available in the US yet. Is it? Is it available everywhere now?
Yeah, Thrive is available in the US. What this is essentially affiliate and loyalty management as an application. So you're dropping a little bit of code on the website to manage affiliates. So those are people who are sending people through their link to make a purchase. What's also cool is that it tracks loyalty programs. So kind of with like a point system, you can give people points for posting on socials about your product or, posting nicely about it really anywhere that they are. So interesting tool. Most people don't need it, right? You're not going to need an application like this. Like a lot of affiliate tools you could just do through like a form embed, a coupon code, things like that. But it's a cool one and it works well for what it does. And what it does is a little limited, but well worth using. If these are big parts of your business and you're like, hey, I need an affiliate program that's more than just a coupon code. I need more like cookie-based tracking links, things like that are more robust. That's where you're going to go to Thrive. And then the added functionality of the loyalty program management is just a nice kicker, right? Because you don't really have to like custom build anything to do that.
Yep. So there you go. That's Zoho Thrive. It is not included in anything right now. No bundles whatsoever, kind of a separate standalone application. But I can see a lot of use cases for this. I mean, I think in most cases, there are so many companies that run affiliate programs, right? Where they manage it all for you. And if you want to put your product over an affiliate, they're going to market it for you. They're going to put it out there. They're going to drive it. They're going to manage it all. I think a lot of companies are going to do that. But this is maybe you just got a couple of things. You want to set them up yourselves. Well, there you go. And moving along to Zoho ToDo, task management. So you've got Todoist. There are so many different task managers out there. This is kind of Zoho's own task manager. The nice thing about this is it does pull in tasks from projects and CRM, and you can kind of centralize your tasks in one place. If you watch us on the CRM show or watch anything else, Zoho seems to be heading down the right path here, which is they're trying to end up with centralized task management. A lot of people say, well, why hasn't it been done? It's a lot easier to say that than it is to do it. You have to standardize so many things across the board to make that happen. We're seeing in the CRM, they broke up calls, they broke up meetings, they broke up tasks. They're breaking those things into separate areas now so that you can manage them, I think, more uniformly across various things. I think Kanban, really nice Kanban boards are coming to CRM because of this breakup of task management. It was originally not architected in the best way. And you really have to, I think, to do down the road is their goal is for it to be an integrated central task management across all of these various applications. But it's also a nice little just standalone to-do application, task management application. So I think, it's, I don't know what the pricing is on it. Is it free? It's, I don't think it's very expensive at all. I don't know, we don't have any pricing on here, but it's just kind of a basic to-do application. And if you have Zoho Mail or anything, it's just right there on the side and it's completely built in. So,
yeah, I think you covered it.
Trainer Central. This is your external facing LMS. We want to love this app. It is in the probably category, could go all the way down to the maybe category. This is a bubble. This is the low end of the probably category. There are just for most people, if you are building out a learning management system and you are going to sell training programs to people, this really should almost be down below. It's just got too many issues. It
That AV
can't stream
quality.
video.
It's just that AV, and we recently last year rolled out our training programs, and we wanted to use Trainer Central. And so as we started recording the content, we uploaded it here, and it's just brutal. I mean, the buffering, the quality gets downscaled so hard. And these are things that like Zoho's working on. Like you might be watching this video in late 2024 and you're like, these guys are crazy. It works great. Maybe, right? Like they know this and they're going to work on it. But the thing on our side, especially if you're doing any paid content, there's so much free video content in the world, this video that you're watching now. And so if you're going to charge for content, it just has to be perfect. And a slow load speed, 480p, compressed audio, it's not a good customer experience. Backend is great, API is great, but those little issues are just too much at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is an odd one. This spun off of an application Zoho had called Showtime. Remember that application?
Oh, great.
Which was absolutely a great application. They killed Showtime. They spun off Trainer Central as its own company almost. It sits there on its own. This thing just needs a lot of work. And I just think if you're going to spend the time to actually build out and sell a course, it's going to be hard pressed to pick this, but maybe it might work for you, or probably, I guess. All right. And then Zoho Voice. We'll probably need to adjust the stars on this a little bit. Tyler, you just went through and did a major Zoho Voice review and overhaul and kind of full product tutorial and broke it all down. Where does this sit in the telephony world as it relates to Zoho?
So it's real good. I mean, it's I agree with you. We'll have to circle back on the stars. It should be a little higher rated. I mean, there are things about it that are great. Setting up the call queues really easily, permissioning numbers is really nice. Honestly, the biggest thing with Zoho Voice is just the pricing. It doesn't make any sense. And that isn't to say it's expensive. It's actually can be really inexpensive. But it's confusing, right? Because you go and you look at it and it's, you pay. You've got the basic plan, the standard plan, the contact center, but then there's also like the Zoho friendly plans, which are different, where you go in and someone gets a Zoho Voice license, but they can't log into Voice. They can only use Voice as an extension of CRM or Desk. And it just gets funky, but it is a really great tool. And depending on how much call volume you have, it can be pretty affordable. But they still charge per minute, where a lot of people have just phased that out in the VoIP offerings. And so most people want to just lock in and know what I'm going to spend. And that's not really an option here.
No, it's a little strange. And by the way, there's Zoho has another voice offering, which is inside a CRM, which is
not to be confused with Zoho Voice. Totally different.
Which is not Zoho Voice. At the end of the day, I think if they fix their pricing, this could be a relatively good option. We normally recommend RingCentral. I'm not really a big fan, of RingCentral, but it just works.
You know what you're going to get with RingCentral is the nice thing.
And it works with Desk. It works with CRM. It works with people. It works across the board, right? It works with Recruit. It's got the integrations that a telephony app would need to have. But anyway, I think you're more impressed than you thought you'd be after the deep dive into Zoho Voice.
I was real happy with it. It just they need to make it easier for people to figure out what plan is going to make the most sense for them. That's the big problem, because it's those three that you see on our page are only actually half of the pricing plans that are available for this. And some of them you buy slabs of users, so you're buying 5 at a time. So if you had 6, now you're paying for 10. It's funky. It's funky on some of the pricing elements.
All right. Zoho Webinar. It's their webinar application. Again, this is one of those that would be at the very, very, very low end of the probably scale, in my opinion, because if you're doing a webinar, it's choppy, and screen sharing and recording can be a little bit choppy. It's included in Zoho One, so I don't know why it's down here, but it's included in Zoho One. And so for a lot of people, it's like, I do a webinar once a year. I'm not going to go pay $500 to Zoom or whatever to do one webinar. Yeah. This may work for you. But.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's such a shame because I actually like the UI of Zoho Meeting and Zoho Webinar. I think they're actually pretty good. But yeah, it's just that AV quality. It's just not there. And it depends how picky you are. But if you can't get at least 1080p consistently with no buffering, that's tough.
Yeah.
People are
I
going to
think
click
this
off.
I think this needs to move down into the maybe category. Honestly, just because of that, it's a webinar, right? And so,
Yeah, it's pretty important.
Yeah, that's kind of key. All right, and almost wrapping up. Couple more to go. Zoho Workerly. This is basically temp help, hourly help, workers. Not to be confused with Zoho Shifts, but it allows you to kind of manage that from a single interface based on jobs and those kind of things. And it's a decent application. It's there's no payroll integration, which is a little tough, but you can get the hours worked and you can export that, and it does very nice reporting on people. Haven't seen a lot of use for it because most people already have their own time tracking and they have their own management kind of things by the time to come to Zoho. And this is just, it'd be rare for a company to actually be, coming to the platform and saying, oh, we don't have a system that manages that already.
Yep.
But if you do, it's here and it's part of Zoho One as well. And
yeah, solid tool. We don't find ourselves using it too much. I mean, a lot of the times when you need temp work management, you can just build it in CRM. Because then you're connecting the temp to this deal that you sold to staff that type of position, right? So it depends. It really does depend on your use case, but it is a good tool. I think. Do we have any YouTube content on this? I think we might have had a video a long time ago, or maybe not as a point of reference.
Nope.
Nope, just some articles. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, solid app. But yeah, the payroll integration's the tough one. So you're just going to have to manually reconcile that into your payroll tool to pay out your temps.
All right, and an app I'm super excited about for the next couple of years and wrapping up our probably category is Zakya. So after a very long time, Zoho has finally released a point of sale system that they have put out. It was pretty much over in India for a while. Now it's rolling out everywhere. I'm not sure if it's even hit here yet, but I think it is not very soon, if not here already. But this could be big. This solves a lot of problems. Normally we're integrating with Square or we're integrating with one of the other systems that are out there. Then you've got inventory integration problems and just there's so many different things. But Zoho's taking this head on, and this is not for the faint of heart. They are building out their own POS. This is 6 months old?
Yeah, something like that. It started a rollout in India, and they've had a lot of actually significant usage of the application there that they've been using to kind of fine tune it and continuously adjust it. But yeah, the biggest thing that I'm really excited about here is just the direct integration to inventory, right? So being able to just know, because a lot of people, what happens is you might have some e-commerce sales, some sales in a store, some sales when you're out in the field doing visits. And the tricky thing is pushing inventory to all these disparate tools. And so because now you'll be able to do this for that in-person sale, now you can actually unify everything into the inventory backend. So yeah, I'm excited to see this one get used more and more throughout the US and kind of Western world, because I've seen mostly great things about the uptick in usage in the East so far.
All right, with that, we're wrapping up the probablys. The definitelys have been put to bed. The probablys are done. And now let's move on to the maybes. So the maybes. This category used to be called the no's. We're calling it the maybes now. And it does apply. There are some companies where this is just going to work perfectly fine for you and go ahead and use it. There are some of these, though, where that's not the case, and we'll kind of let's step you through them bit by bit here. Not a lot in the maybes. It's kind of a quick section. Honestly, if you're watching this video, if there's one here you really, really want to use, and watch this. Otherwise, just say, if it's until it moves up into another category, I would avoid these. But we'll start with Zoho Assist. This is remote desktop control where you're able to go in, take control of someone's desktop and go through it. It just lacks so many basic features that most other remote assist tools have that it's almost impossible to recommend. I mean,
Yeah, it's
it
very
really,
limited. I mean, I had a call the other day with someone who showed me Ninja RMM, which is like kind of a commonly used version of Assist out there. And he's like, "Do you think I can switch over?" It's like, no, you cannot. No, you cannot. It was doing so many things. It had a whole portal where people could request sessions and schedule them. You know, you can't do any scheduling here with Zoho Assist. So things that it can do well, it integrates with Desk. That is nice. You can send out an assist link, and if they jump in right away, it will work. But there's no like send out a calendar invite for us to do this later. It's all like right now type service. No voice chat when you're remoted in, so you have to use a text chat. Just very limited, very limited. If you've ever been on a screen share with Zoho support, that's what they use. They use Zoho Assist. So it is technically functional. It does work, but compared to its competitors on the market, you're probably going to like those more unless you just need something really simple and want to save some money on it.
right. I mean, it's basic stuff. If you want to just go in and you're going to say, you know, you have to get them on the phone, right? So you'll get them on the phone and then you'll give them the link and then you'll say, do this or this or this. But if you're going to do that, just send them a Zoom link and have them share their screen and,
You
or
can even
whatever.
take remote management on a Zoom link too. So it's just a little tricky. It's not going to be comparable to what you're using now.
Yep. All right, moving on. Zoho bookings. This one disturbs me more than any other, the next two, more than any other Zoho application. Here's the deal. Very simple. It's just you. You need a link. Someone can book with you. You live in the Zoho universe. You're on Zoho Calendar, Zoho CRM, Zoho Mail. You don't do anything outside. It doesn't need to check the outside world. It doesn't need to check and see if someone else is available. Go for it.
It works. It works for booking a resource, but the problem is if your calendar will only be populated by things that were booked through bookings, okay, there's a discussion there. Maybe it's going to work for you. But like if I were to connect it to my Google Calendar and Brett sends me an invite just on Google, it might make it, it might not. And it's getting better. It's more and more that it's making it. But the big problem is that it's maintaining its own version of a calendar. And so what that means is that hypothetically it needs to know and sync every single thing that happens in your Google Calendar or your, Outlook calendar. Versus something like Calendly, it doesn't store a calendar. It stores rules about how to interact with a calendar, and it references your calendar when somebody goes to book and applies those rules. So structurally, just at a core level, this is just not the same as a lot of the other booking tools, and it causes problems, and it doesn't always capture movements of meetings. So let's say Brett books me at 1 p.m. I drag it on my calendar to 2 p.m. instead. It's a coin flip on whether or not Zoho Bookings is going to see that update, unless I go into Bookings and reschedule it there, which I don't want to do. So it's one of those things where because it can double book you, we just say maybe don't use it. Probably not the best plan.
And it's included with Zoho on the premium plan. It's just like I said, there are things, but I do have hope one day. Zoho Checkout, a very, very odd application. It's for a single product e-commerce. I click a link, I buy it, I check out. If you're using Zoho One, you'd probably use billings for that anyway, or there's a million different things that you can do with this. But it's just limited. Doesn't really do anything. Much.
Yeah, and the big challenge is like it could have a use case if you could create a really custom looking checkout page, but you kind of can't. Like the only fields that are going to show on it are like books, invoice, custom fields. You can't really lay them out. You can't really, it's just so limited that you're better off not using it. I mean, oftentimes if you want that single form checkout, you could just use Zoho Forms and integrate Stripe for a payment checkout there. Right. And then that will get the job done. We just don't really find ourselves ever choosing to use this for anything because it's just so limited in customization and functionality.
And the checkout team can let me know, but I haven't seen an update on this in 10 years. So I don't even know if there's anything going on. It's been a long time since any change has been made to this. So moving on, another big application that unfortunately sits down here. This is Webinar's cousin, Zoho Meeting. It's Zoom. It's GoToMeeting. It's Microsoft Meetings. It's Google Meet. It's all those things. It's fine. It does everything perfectly well. It's got all the features. It does everything. But if it's choppy and you can't see the person and the audio's bad and blah, 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 and the recordings are bad, well, then it defeats its purpose of being a nice little meeting tool. There are some people that just do meetings every now and then, and they're just short, and they don't care, and they're not recording them, and they don't care if the audio quality is the best or the video quality is the best. This does fit in for you, but not right now. And the biggest problem Zoho has there is they do everything on their own data centers. They don't use anybody else. They're not using AWS. They're not using Azure. They just can't crank up the compute, crank up the bandwidth. So these applications get throttled, and they do pay the price for it. But again, not a bad application, just it suffers from that one problem. All right, PageSense. We're down the home stretch here. Tyler's least favorite app in the entire Zoho universe, and that it just doesn't work.
It just doesn't work. I mean, last time that we tried to use it, we wanted to run an A/B test, send 50% of traffic here, 50% of traffic here. Ran it for a week. It had sent 6 people down path B. So it just doesn't. Sometimes it does. And when it does, it works great. But a lot of the times it just doesn't work, and it doesn't do what you tell it to. And so it's tough to use. The thing that does work well is heat maps and scroll maps. Those are generally good. You can use it for those, but a lot of the other functionality, it's just, you'll let it run for a long time and just nothing happens. So just not one that we really recommend for usage outside of like just the heat map and scroll map functionality that is going to work.
Really take the core functionality out of here that really works, move it over to SalesIQ, right? It's almost where it belongs. I don't know. There's some different things here. But enough. This is another app that I haven't seen any development on in a very long time, but that's PageSense. Zoho Payroll, this is close. The biggest problem with Zoho Payroll is it's only in a limited few states, right? There's no 1099 integrated service with it yet. It does handle W-2 people. If you're in one of the states where it handles this and you're at a Zoho house, you may want to use it. So many companies today are virtual, and they have employees all over the country, that this can cause problems, right, across the board. But I think this app's going to come along. There's a lot. They're adding states. They're going through it. But for most companies, we talk to them, and it really doesn't tick off all the things that a lot of payroll services do. Right, payroll services have a lot of extra benefits they offer, a lot of other things they do, and this can kind of miss on that. So, but stay tuned. Follow Zoho Payroll. I think they have big plans for it. And let's wrap it up, Tyler, with Zoho Sites.
Yeah, Zoho Sites. I mean, it's in that maybe category, because why not just use WordPress? It's free. You can just use it. It's so much more robust. There's so many different builder tools that make it easy in WordPress to build out a website. I mean, there are things that are nice inside of Zoho Sites, some of the pre-built integrations that make it a little easier to drop a form in. But the reality is adding a form to a WordPress site is also pretty darn easy. Yep. The look and feel is just not going to be the same. You're not going to have that same level of flexibility. So it's one of those tools that we just don't see a big reason to use it. They did add one feature that was cool, where you could have a page that makes a Deluge request to get data from Zoho and then wraps it up on that page. That was cool. It runs pretty slow when you actually put it in practice. So it's just not an application that makes sense to use compared to other very inexpensive or free options on the market.
My thing on this is that even if it's perfect for you now. You just need a very simple site. You're going to build it out. It's a simple site. Down the road, you're going to want something else. You're going to say, I really like, and it's just not going to be available. Whereas if you were
calendar, and if you want an event calendar on a WordPress site, you've got 1,000 different plugins you can choose from that are mostly free or $1 a month or whatever. Sites,
exactly,
maybe not. You're just not going to have that functionality. So it doesn't make sense. You make a great point there. Where like, even if it makes sense now, it probably won't make sense in a year, and you're going to have to move anyways.
Right. All right. Well, that wraps up all Zoho apps. What a review.
Maybe the longest piece of content that
we've ever
made
done
here on Not a Channel.
That's it. I'm getting stuffed up. This whole show, slowly but surely, my sinuses have been filling up as my Sudafed wears off. Hey, I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in and watching our overview of all the Zoho apps. As always, if you have any questions or comments, it would be fantastic. You just go to Zenatta.com, click on Book a Meeting. We'd love to talk to you and see how we can help you.
On the website is where you'll find full episodes of our podcast, The CRM Zen Show, where we cover all the news in the world of Zoho every single week. We'd also love if you'd subscribe to our newsletter to get that news delivered to your inbox every single Monday morning. And as always, we appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Woo! Record time.